recap is, just so people out there in the radio land will know who we're talking about.
They're the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena. Well, they did not actually exist before 1956, so let's set the scene. It's 1956, and the Air Force has been commissioned with all of the UFO reporting and accounts. But the Air Force itself had been notoriously difficult about releasing any information. In fact, their secrecy and the degree of how dark and secretive they'd be with their information prompted Congress to step in and say, we need to do something about this. We need to set up our own committee here. And so this is when NICAP...
Do you know who spearheaded that congressional thing to do that?
It wasn't...
Congressman Gerald Ford.
Oh, Gerald Ford. That's right. Oh, was it really?
Yeah. Congressman Gerald Ford, who eventually became president, was the guy from... He was a congressman from Michigan at the time, who kind of pushed that. So I'm glad you're reading this. This is...
Yeah, I thought it was, I picture it like spies and, the Air Force is keeping everything from Congress, and the Congress has to set up their own commission to go in and infiltrate, and it just seems very cloak and dagger. I dig it, but this is all actually about documentation, so it's not a novel. It's really good, though. What this goes through is all of their accounts, radar cases of different pilots. It even has one of my favorite sections would be the documentation of the actual UFO types. And I'm going to show this to Facebook.
Very nice.
If you'd like to go and catch our replay, you can see a little bit of what these look like. But they set up a system of how to account for these scientifically and how to track each one of these records and record it. So then by 1963, we had more UFO reports than we'd ever had in history because someone was actually compiling and keeping track of these and actually releasing the reports, which was different than prior. So, I mean, it's a really good book. There's a lot I could say about it.
You know what? This is very timely because this is the exact era of the new movie that's coming out called Blue Book.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the new film that's coming out? And it's all about, actually it's not all about, but Dr. Hynek is featured in the film, Blue Book, as the scientist who was brought in by the Air Force to try to debunk all these UFO sightings. And of course, what happens to Dr. Alan J. Hynek is he gets into it and goes, wait a minute, there's stuff really going on out there. And of course, he was famous eventually for claiming the Michigan swamp gas case that said that, and of course, then the people got upset. And this is one of the things that came out of it was an actual NICAP publication called the UFO Evidence by the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena. That was prompted by Congressman Gerald Ford. Are we timely or what?
Yeah.
My goodness, the new film. You got to watch this new film.
Project Blue Book?
Project Blue Book. It looks like it's going to be a blockbuster.
This is amazing. I'd get your hands on this if you can.
An old book.
Yeah, I mean, it was $5 at the time. I'm not sure what Amazon is going to be selling this for now.
It's going to be a lot more now, I'm sure.
We can maybe share.
Thank you, Ray. That's an awesome book review.
I've actually got a book by Walter Sullivan, who was the science editor for New York Times.
Really?
He wrote a book in 1964 called We Are Not Alone. And there's evidence in that book of radio communication from the Soviets.
Yeah.
They shared information because scientists back then, even though the Cold War was going on, there was a push to end it. And so scientists started talking to each other. They knew each other prior to the Cold War. They started, and they got in trouble. But there's a lot of information in this book. It's about that thick. And I found it.
Thick?
It's about that thick.
An inch.
Who on the radio would know what that means?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's about an inch thick.
There you go, an inch thick.
What was the name of this book again?
It's called We Are Not Alone. And it's total science.
Do we know the author?
Walter Sullivan.
Okay, Walter Sullivan.
Science editor for New York Times at the time.
Interesting. Oh, my goodness.
Scientist in his own right.
And then, of course, we jump to 2017, last year, December, and the New York Times comes out with an article interviewing the Department of Defense and the Pentagon officials, and they actually confirm for the first time in known history in this parsec of the universe that UFOs exist.
Yeah. And they were spending tax dollars investigating them.
22 billion of our tax dollars over 5 years to study what they called advanced aerial threats. They didn't call them UFOs. They kind of come, of course, the Pentagon has to come up with some kind of an idea of what they're studying to convince Congress that this money is well spent, so they call them advanced aerial threats.
Can I say something about that?
You can, and then Troy's going to follow you.
All I'm going to say as a British citizen, I would just like to say that our government has been saying that UFOs exist far longer than your government.
Yes, they have. Let's hear it for Kevin Beagle, by the way.
Let's hear it for Ireland!
Irish.
But not 5%, they say 5% of all UFO encounters cannot be accounted for, and so do the French. And so I'm glad you guys finally got over it.
We got up.
I'm serious, you're right.
They had the congressional hearings that they...
Yeah.
Have they really in Europe?
No, here in the United States before 9/11.
Yeah, they did.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the disclosure got put off because of 9/11, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Congress,
US
Congress officially says they will not do an open discussion about UFOs.
Why not? I mean, what does that tell you?
Because of national security.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Well,
that one that was
Massachusetts governor has signed and declared an actual act because there was 250. It was on H&E.
Yes.
And there's 250 people called in and saw this thing, so he had to declare it as an actual happening.
Yes.
It was a UFO.
Yeah,
This is
the Matthew Reed,
Arizona governor.
Massachusetts.
Okay, so this is another governor. Not Five Symington in Arizona, but this is another governor of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is actually
Signed
coming
it
out
as
and enforcing the actual disclosure.
And
Troy wants to say,
I would just like to add to the TikTok UFO videos that started to be released in December that you had talked about. I recently listened to a very recent Costa episode with Jimmy Church, by the way. I don't remember the Air Force guy's name, but the guy was interviewed. He worked on aircraft carrier at the time in the early 2000s that these tic-tac UFOs or objects were being encountered and filmed by these jets that encountered them.
Yep.
And he said that there were actually 100 encounters with these objects that were documented.
yeah.
And there were about 8 to 10 of these objects in a group, in basically clusters near each other in each of these encounters. So that's like 1,000 of these objects. Maybe they're the same objects over and over again, but like 100 encounters of these.
So what Troy is mentioning, by the way, is in that article in the New York Times in 2017, they actually alluded and gave links to some gun camera footage from the military Navy pilots off of the aircraft carrier, the Nimitz. And this was about 2004 when these tapes were actually recorded and we're talking about a Tic Tac. Some folks might not know what that was, but on the videotape that the gun cameras show is a object that looks similar to the shape of a Tic Tac breath mint. And these things came, by the way, these Navy pilots were following these objects from at least 80,000 feet, because that's where their radars would go on the craft themselves, on the jets. 80,000 feet down to the sea level in 5 seconds. That's what they caught their attention. They said nothing that we know could do that with an occupant in it, which would not survive. So that's what Troy is talking about. The idea that these craft are being sighted by our own Navy pilots. And on Coast to Coast, I think you probably heard one of the Navy pilots being interviewed, because I have heard that guy make the rounds of the talk shows confirming that this is what he recorded in his gun camera footage. which is, in itself is unique. I mean, the government is allowing an ex-Navy pilot to go on public mainstream media and talk about UFOs that have been sighted.
Yep.
Yeah, that brings to mind a remarkable photograph that was taken by another government accidentally back in the 70s. I don't know if it's the Navy or the military of the Costa Rica was just flying over the coast of Costa Rica, and they had a camera that was just taking photographs. They were actually just doing a geographical survey of the area.
Got it.
They accidentally captured a large saucer either going into the water or coming out of the water. It's undeniable, and that's the government released it. Here it is. We don't know what it was.
They're not afraid to release it over
They
there.
weren't.
It's on the cover of their report, actually. That picture.
So if you want to, I would encourage anybody interested to Google that.
So
just Google it. Costa Rica UFO.
Okay.
You will find that photograph. It's remarkable.
And you're saying that somehow they think it was going into the water or coming out?
Oh, clearly it was halfway in or out.
Oh, okay.
We didn't. They just don't know if it was coming out or if it was going in.
Right.
That's the only question.
You know,
it was
speaking
huge.
of which, 2 weekends ago, when we were in Glacier, Washington, you're not going to believe this story. Our buddy, which we named Rob from Puyallup, because he doesn't want to disclose his entire name, he actually says that he has footage of a UFO flying over Silver Lake, which is up in that neck of the woods, not too far from Maple Falls, Washington. And he has it on tape. He says the object is coming out of the blue sky and then going into the lake.
Wow.
And then he says he tracks it on videotape underneath the water as it's moving through the water, and then it pops back up out of the lake and streaks off into the clear blue sky. And guess what? He says there is no splash either way.
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
Going into the water or coming out of the water, which kind of makes you think, well, that might be possible if they are going supersonic and as fast as the speed of light. And matter of fact, he has captured these things on film when he reviews them frame by frame, going at least 20,000 miles an hour, so fast that you can't even see them with your naked eye. But he's captured them on videotape and reviewed it frame by frame. If they're going that fast through our atmosphere and not creating a sonic boom or any kind of an effect, then obviously maybe they can do the same thing in water.
Yeah,
they're in a hyper time.
I think that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is a better question for an engineer, but if you have, in order to make that happen, you would have to have some sort of a way to break the surface tension of the water, and obviously they can manipulate that. So, I mean, if it seems like you could break the surface tension of the water and break the surface tension of the atmosphere in the same kind of a way, maybe that's plausible. I don't know. But I also wanted to say that back in the old days, and I always bring up military stuff and don't ask me why. But back in the old days,
because we thank you for your service.
Yes,
let's put it that way.
The prior to the Shah being, do you remember the gun camera footage coming from
Iran?
An Iranian pilot?
Yes.
Who was flying an F-4 Phantom?
Yes.
After a UFO too. So there is more than one gun camera.
Was that the Iranian pilot that said that all of his electronics went dead?
Yes.
For a period of
so
time?
he had to turn away. He had to turn away.
Right.
This will give you a better
He thought he
idea
was
how
gonna
the
crash.
propulsion, this device here, the flux liner, actually
By
does.
the way, we have not
Nice
unlocked
segue.
the
I can
flux
show you the
liner.
flux
What
liner.
a great segue.
It's a Mark McCandless drawing that somebody turned into software, 3D printed software.
Oh, wow.
And I've
Jacques
been making them.
actually has the model
Yes.
that is actually
Related.
created
Oh.
by
Yeah, they're
3D
beautiful.
printing, by the way.
And they have little
We're going to have to hold that so
and-
Oh
people
my
can
gosh.
see on the
Yeah, we've been
film.
building these
And
for a
we
couple
are,
of years.
oh, the light
little
now,
LED
now,
inside?
Yeah,
Take
and
it
it
over
for
to the
also
folks
has-
camera.
out there in
Yeah.
radio